Greetings. My name is Kiamba Vaishalmani. I'm pleased to be here to present my work to you. Why is college tuition rising? Modeling competing strategies in higher education. I want to thank my advisor, Dr. Navid Ghaffar Zaragan. I want to thank System Dynamics Society for making this possible. And also, I want to thank you all for being present today and listening to my presentation. So to start with, we want to start with problem statement. Why is this important? Why do we want to work on this? Why do we want to study this? We know that tuition is a very important socioeconomic factor because it relates to education directly. And we know education is a right for all, and it's a path for you to get the desired career that you have. And this education is made available for everyone, not through it being free, but through having student loans available. And having these student loans available is a good idea in the beginning, but we see more and more that that is causing a problem. As you see the student debt crisis, and we're hearing this more and more in the news and the political debates recently. And also we want to see how education institutes have evolved during past years. We see that the more known the Ivy League schools are thriving, whereas the smaller universities are not having a good time. A lot of them are going out of business. So why is that? It is an important factor to consider. And also we want to consider the puzzling case of tuition. Why is it puzzling? Because we see that the rise in tuition is very much different to the rise of inflation. I mean, they're in the same direction, but tuition is outpacing inflation enormously. And so inflation cannot be responsible for this increase. And then the puzzling part is that we don't see this rise happening in young college graduate salaries. So you're making more money as a college graduate, but the differences over the past years are nowhere close to how much tuition is rising. And then you have the question of enrollment and tuition. You would assume that, okay, enrollment has been rising because we have more people wanting to go to college, so that should be higher demand, meaning higher tuition would be explained. But that's not the case anymore. So we see in the past decade, enrollment is actually plateaued and even decreasing, but still tuition is rising. And then the final question is, how long will it last? Will there be a possible collapse? Maybe. We have to consider the education return. So this concept means everyone would make a decision whether or not to go to college because you're paying the tuition and you're expecting a return. And if the benefits doesn't outweigh this tuition, then it's not a good idea. And the benefits are the salary increase. And on the other hand, you have the increasing tuition. And this does not look very good in the near future. So how we approach this problem and what assumptions we make is through the system dynamics modeling. So what we believe is universities over time, they make certain decisions, and these decisions, they affect each other, they affect themselves. And to better understand and model this, we use certain leverages. We make some assumptions that universities have two leverages to control their revenue, which are tuition and enrollment. And we know in dynamic modeling that just these decisions alone can be seen as they are, because they're intertwined and they not only affect each other, they also affect the system as a whole. So we know that certain actions might have long-lasting effects in the system. And an example of that would be increasing enrollment values. And initially, you would think that this increase would be beneficial because you gain more revenue. But on the other hand, you see that to accommodate these new students, you would have to do more expenditure. And this expenditure needs to be funded through a resource, and that resource could be, again, increasing enrollment or increasing tuition. So we see an example of a reinforcing loop. And there are multiple other causal loops, and we have to model that initially. So what we did was we made the model for an individual university. And once we came with the idea of how that works, we expanded that on an environment that is the competing environment that resembles the actual environment that universities are competing in. And in that model, we think that we can better understand and explain why tuition is rising, because the sense of this competition is actually a fuel for this rise in tuition. So what we did is we made a simple case of two colleges competing, and we did this through stock flow diagrams, and simulating it. So we see here two colleges using different strategies. We all know that the decisions of each player or each college will affect the other one. Why? Because we have this limited resource that is shared between them. And that's, for example, the number of potential students. So when one college is attracting more students, there are less students left for the other college. And to explain this in this simulation that I made here, the college number one is just battling inflation, so that we see a rise in tuition, but that's just to keep afloat. But at the same time, we try different strategies for college number two, and we see here that college number two is deciding to increase their expenditure. What that means is they're trying to be a more attractive university, so they're attracting more students. Now that comes with the cost of a higher tuition, but the thing is, even though we see that tuition is rising way more and is at a more rate as the college number one, still people are more inclined to enroll in college number two, and all is because of that attractiveness. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because you're paying more, and arguably the service is kind of the same. So the purpose of the education is the same. There's only a minor difference, but at the same time, you see that the enrollment values for college number one is decreasing, whereas number two is continuously increasing. And then we ask the question that, is this even sustainable? So we have that education return case, again, that I explained. Is that possible in the future that tuition rises and rises and still people would enroll? Not necessarily. And the enrollment values themselves are a question, because we have demographic changes happening. We have the rise of online education. So maybe people are not willing to enroll at the same rate to classical colleges, and many other challenges. And to better understand and to better model this, and to answer this challenging question, we need to do more studies on these factors. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll be available if you have any questions, and I'll appreciate your feedback. Have a great rest of the day.